Good evening, you're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Nidhi Razdan. At midnight last night, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar was woken up with a phone call. He was told that a massive security breach had just happened, with an Australian newspaper revealing how more than 22,000 pages of top-secret data on India's top-of-the-line submarines had been leaked. These submarines, called the Scorpenes, are being made by a French company. And now, because of this leak, countries like China and Pakistan know critical combat information like what frequencies the submarines gather intelligence at, what levels of noise they make at various speeds, their diving depths, their range, and details of the torpedo launch system as well as the combat system. Now, all of this is sensitive information. So the question is, where exactly did this leak come from? Did it come from India, from France, or somewhere else?
The secrets of this submarine, the INS Calvary and 5 others being built have been leaked, at least according to this report. The French-designed submarines are so advanced, so silent underwater that they are extremely difficult, if not impossible, to detect. But according to the Australian, the leak of over 22,000 pages has the technical specifications which would make detection possible. The papers leaked include the sonar capabilities of the submarine, the noise generated by the submarines, the magnetic, electromagnetic and infrared signatures and details of combat systems.
मैंने चीफ ऑफ नेवी उनको बोला है कि वो पूरा विश्लेषण करें उसका क्या लीक हुआ है हमारे बारे में उसमें क्या है.
Sound is the most important facet of any submarine in the world, and if you know what type of sound or the frequencies in which sound is generated by these submarines underwater, as an enemy you will know where to look for that sound.
Even though the leaked documents say this, Indian Navy sources told NDTV that the Indian submarines are of a different version. The Indian Navy's probe still continues, but in its initial report it has told the Ministry of Defence that the documents do not pertain to the submarine that we are building. Now the big question is, what does the Ministry of Defence do next? Does it take this issue up with the French manufacturers and ask for an explanation?
Both the Defence Minister of India, Shri Manohar Parrikar, Modi government and Indian Navy are currently engaged in Operation Cover-up instead of Operation Fixation of Responsibility.
The scandal comes amidst Australia planning a massive $50 billion deal with the French firm DCNS. A DCNS spokesperson quoted by Reuters says while they do not know if the information is correct, they allege that they could be a victim of an economic war. But a worried government is conducting a deep investigation, including whether data has been hacked here. There aren't likely to be clean chits soon. With Vishnu Shrom, Shruti Ranjan Sen for NDTV.
Joining us on the program tonight, Rear Admiral Raja Menon here in the studio with us, Sushant Singh, Associate Editor of the Indian Express. We have Commodore Siyudev Bhaskar here with us in the studio. The political representatives tonight, former Minister and Congress spokesperson Manish Tiwari and China NC spokesperson of the BJP. Let me take this question to you first, Admiral Raja Menon. Do you believe that this is a serious security breach? What is your assessment of this story today?
My assessment is that there has been a breach in procedure, definitely. But whether this constitutes a threat to national security as a result of compromising submarines' technical data, that is yet to be proven.
So we should wait for that probe.
We should wait for that. That kind of data normally would be available in post-construction trials, which has not taken place. So I wouldn't go overboard on the issue that our national security has been compromised in these leaks.
What you're saying is important because you're saying then that the data that is critical to these submarines, those trials actually haven't happened, and that is something that we need to wait for, so that may not have been compromised. But Commodore Uday Bhaskar, do you agree with that, or do you believe that it is scary that so many thousands of pages of data on these submarines has been out there for some years apparently now?
Well, Nidhi, I would say it's startling because generally submarines are shrouded in a fair amount of secrecy. Countries do not even officially acknowledge how many submarines are available in their fleet, etc. So to that extent, to have 22,000 pages out there in the public domain is startling. But I do want to add to the point Admiral Menon has made, which is that we do not yet have a clear sense about the veracity of this report in terms of its links with the Indian boat, because there are Scorpenes and Scorpenes. DCNS as a company has been making this particular platform, and India itself spoke, or the first, shall we say, mails that went asking for proposals about getting a Scorpene kind of submarine goes back by a good 15-16 years. I mean, I recall this was sometime 2000-2001. So it's possible that what is out there in the public domain may not necessarily correspond with the Indian boat in terms of its design parameters, and we also don't know for sure, because the Australian in its report also said that they had deleted certain sensitive information. But the point is that if you're really concerned about your
well, they deleted it. That doesn't mean the other guys who have it.
If you worry about a Pakistan or a China, they don't need the Australians report.
They probably have it anyway, which is why.
So to that extent, I think we should wait for the official.
Certainly, but Sushant, you know, you can see that experts are divided on this. And you have Vice Admiral A.K. Singh, who has told a website today that he believes that there's no doubt that Islamabad and Beijing are studying these documents, and this has saved them 20 to 30 years of espionage. You have Admiral Arun Prakash, who says it's too early to be alarmist and jump to any alarmist conclusions. But the fact is, when you hear that you have 22,000 pages of data that apparently went missing since 2011 and could have been floating around basically anywhere for the last few years, that is certainly a cause for worry.
Yeah, definitely it's a cause for worry, and the fact that one of your biggest defense suppliers, France, which you are going to buy Rafale from, and you're buying these submarines, the data has most probably leaked from there, as we clearly know by now. You know, and if the data has been leaked by them, it does compromise India in a big way. But let us also not forget the fact that this data pertains. This is 2011 data. I'm sure there are many versions of the data which have been exchanged between India and DCNS since then. Is this the data that really pertains to the Indian submarine? While it is worrying, does it really mean that we should shelve this submarine program? We should start rebuilding the submarines? I think that is a question which we should not jump to.
Except that you do have this French company now also hinting at corporate espionage, and I'll come to that in a moment. Manish Tiwari, the Congress though has gone big on this today and is demanding not just a probe into this particular leak, but a complete security audit of the Defence Ministry by a sitting Supreme Court judge. Is that an overly alarmist reaction to this, or does the Congress genuinely believe that there has been a big compromise with India's national security here?
Well, Nidhi, the facts as they have surfaced in the public space in terms of the report which was published in the Australian, which really pertained to the fact that the Australian naval submarine program is possibly not safe in the hands of DCNS, is certainly disturbing, for the lack of a better word. Now, the report also says that DCNS, the company which is manufacturing this platform, has insinuated obliquely that the leak could have emanated out of India. Now, if all this, which is in the realm of conjecture, is correct by any yardstick, it does call for a certain inquiry. Because ultimately, if there is information which has been floating around, did that information emanate out of the company which got this contract, or did that information emanate out of India, is something which really needs to be inquired into. And therefore, there is a certain premise that a security audit of our naval installations or of our defense establishment may just be in order to really rule out the possibility that India could have been the source of this leak. So to that extent, it is not going overboard or going into an overdrive. It is just taking preemptive steps that, God forbid, if something of this sort has happened, while concurrently the inquiry takes place to determine the veracity or otherwise, and
Manish,
if the
report is correct,
the implications that it has on national security.
The Congress has also said this is a cover-up by the government. Again, that's a very, sort of a serious accusation to make. Why do you say that it's a cover-up? Are you saying that you are convinced that this leak may have come from India and that blame is being deflected?
No, Nidhi, I think it's too early to jump to any conclusions, and we certainly are not jumping to any conclusions on this. All that we have said is that the facts as they stand today do call for a thorough investigation, and possibly it may just be in order that the investigation is held under the aegis of an authority outside the establishment, which possibly or may not have been or allegedly could have been responsible for the leak.
Okay.
Because already there's a blame game which seems to have started off.
Okay, so let me ask the
Between the
BJP that
company
question.
and the consumers.
That on the face of it, then there shouldn't really be a problem then with having an independent probe into this China and maybe a sitting Supreme Court judge as the Congress wants, or some other independent authority.
Nidhi, hold your horses. First and foremost, please let's highlight what the Raksha Mantri has said. Clearly, he has said that this seems to be a case of hacking. He goes on to say, the first important thing to identify is whether it is related to us in the first place or not. And I'd like to quote what he said so that I do not misrepresent his viewpoint, where he says the first step is to identify, the second step is to identify the extent of unwarranted, but it's not at all 100% because we do not have our final integration. Now, I don't think there can be a statement which is more explicit than this. Now, we have asked for a full analysis. The fact that you have the Raksha Mantri from 12 o'clock last night until now constantly keeping everyone in the loop vis-a-vis information that needs to be given out. I'm sure there is a lot of information which need not be given out, and I don't think that we should jump the gun and say, are you going to have a Supreme Court monitored panel to investigate? First, let's identify if this is vis-a-vis us or not, because his final statement today where he says, because we do not have our final integration, and I unquote, I think it's imperative to understand that he is the one to be answering, and if he feels that whether this is a question about whether it's factually leaked about us or not is also an area of contention. So yes, we can debate and analyze what the situation is, how it could pan out, if it is vis-a-vis us or not.
Sure.